timeline of events and the actual report. So it takes you through the process from end to end, which is extremely helpful. In addition, again, we had an hour today. I couldn't cover everything in the presentation, but there's additional collection and analysis techniques as well that are all over the white paper, including code pages and correlation settings. SQL Server has multilingual support. You could have several tables from several different languages to understand what language you're looking at and how to translate that. I cover that within the actual white paper. In addition, one of the languages, if you store information in Japanese and you view that Japanese information on your forensic workstation that's configured in an American code page, you're going to get incorrect information. You're going to get corrupt data. So how to make sure you understand what the correlation setting of the target table is and what code page you're using on your analyst workstation is covered in the white paper. How to obtain server configuration. Identify user account creation and elevation of privilege activity, as well as covered within the white paper, and transaction log data carving. We talked in the presentation about how to take a look at the active VLF and how to extract data. That's what we did when we dumped the log file. But when active VLFs are inactive, how do you get access to those transactions? And that's touched briefly within the actual white paper and more. Questions? Up at the front. Well, with the trace files, the database files, meaning the MDF files and the log files, all of them are held by SQL Server. So you would actually have to stop the SQL Server processes to grab those files. That's why, based on the evidence prioritization, you gather all the database evidence information first, stop the services, and then do your signatures, grab the files, and take it from there. Past trace files, though, of course, there's no lock on them. And you can, of course, gather those. Okay. I'm getting off easy here. Any more questions at the back? Yeah. I got you. That's actually a good question. In case anyone didn't hear it, what's the lifetime of the procedure cache? How long does it store information? To answer that, SQL Server will store all the plan execution and all the text that was executed as long as the last reboot. In most cases, it stores it all. However, if it does come into a situation where there's memory pressure, meaning it runs out of memory, it will start to overwrite the procedure cache. Assuming your memory allocation is fine for the specs of your SQL Server, it should carry all entries as of the last restart of your SQL Server. Okay. Correct. With log files, the correct response to that would be it varies. If you back up your log file, it marks all active VLFs as inactive. If your log file fills up to 70% of the actual size of your transaction log, it will complete the same process. If you back up once a week, then your log files will contain 1 week of data. So it varies depending on numerous conditions, in addition to if the number of transactions that have been recorded, if it takes longer than your set recovery interval to restore those transactions, of course it will mark active VLFs as inactive. So there's about 4 or 5 different variables, and the only answer I can give you is it varies. It could be hours, weeks, days, depending on a whole bunch of different factors. That's why it's important to get in there, and that's the second item you should grab after volatile information, is grab those transactions, because they're so important with an investigation. Okay. Anyone else?
So no tools out there as far as you know to assist with debugging MDF files?
Zero. I actually started writing one, but I had to stop. This tool was actually going to automate the acquisition of database files, evidence, and as well, I was going to search for rootkits, a few other things, and in addition to that, help analyze, but I actually ran out of time and I haven't written the tool yet. But I had the question earlier, automation can be extremely easy for this because it's repetitive, depending on the different variables within the situation. So no tools today, but I'm expecting a lot in the future because it's extremely easy to automate.
And on that one slide, you mentioned the Windows Forensics Toolkit. I missed what you were saying the use of that would be in this scenario.
Oh, for a forensic toolkit, or tool chest, what it is a suite of tools that you basically have a configuration file, and you run on a Windows server, and you would just hit go, and it would go through memory, disk files, etc., and it gathers volatile and non-volatile data. You can customize Windows Forensic Tool Chest with any executables you want. So by adding SQL CMD or another command line SQL query tool, you can tell it what type of evidence to extract. Windows Forensic Tool Chest will extract that information, store the results, and MD5 sum them as well to make sure you have integrity of those files. So that's what I've done in the investigations that I've actually conducted, and it works extremely well. And a lot of times during the investigation, you're going to come up to the fact, oh, I wonder what that registry setting of that database server was. All that information is within WFT. So you'd be silly not to automate collection with WFT, even for database forensics. Cool.
And since you have to, I guess, stop the server to get some of this data, I guess if there are any issues there in terms of proving the court that you didn't, modify the data as you were acquiring it.
If I understand the question, it was when you stop the server, is there any way to make sure you don't modify the data?
Yeah, ideally, when you're doing the acquisition, you show that you've shut down the server and you're kind of taking the data off.
Yep.
In a read-only fashion.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatively provable that you didn't introduce data that wasn't really there as you're doing your acquisition. It seems like you can't do that quite as much with the database.
For the information you gather before you obtain the physical MDF data files and log files, it's live analysis, so you're just dumping live information, so that's fine. To grab the existing trace file, the existing error log file, and the MDF and LDF files, you will have to stop that. But I don't see how that would introduce a lot of changes for the file. And as long as you record what time you shut it down, it's not going to add entries that this transaction deleted a certain record or inserted a certain record. When you do grab those data files, though, this is actually bringing up a good point. When you acquire that file, if you're using DCFLDD, you want to make sure to use the block size and set an appropriate block size, because when you attach that to your actual SQL Server Management Studio Express, it will modify the page header. So as long as you use a block size, you can discount the area that's been modified and make sure you still have integrity for all of the data pages that you actually analyze. So it's a good question. Anyone else? Great. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.